Mainline magazine has a very journalistic approach, and this whole idea of making a glamorous magazine was a bit, well, out of the picture for us. And I thought this is just a marvelous idea, and it came from the drug users. We want a sort of cosmopolitan for the drug users.
As an outreach worker, my function is to provide drug users in the street with information about their health. We spread the magazine, distribute the magazine mainline, and it's always a good way to have contact with the user. They're always waiting for the new issue to come.
A lot of people who are not involved with drug users and don't know their problems really like people to kick the habit. And we like people to kick the habit too, but in a lot of cases this is just not possible.
Well, there's a diversity of reactions to our magazine by the public. Some people respond positively, that they say, yeah, that's good, that once there's a magazine really with the good information for drug users. And others will say rather, well, you cannot promote, it promotes drug use.
We believe that if you give people objective information, they're adults and they can make healthy decisions. This harm reduction principle is getting support all over the world because it's pragmatic, it has low costs, and it is very effective. We thought there were loads of issues we could talk about, to have information about how to bring up children, how to handle friendships, and we just went and asked the female drug users if they want to do interviews, and they all were like really enthusiastic about it. Here the doctor knows what to do. We asked female drug users what kind of problems, health problems they have, and we went to a doctor to get advice. She is, I say, looking very healthy and gorgeous, and she is a model. So not all drug users are bad looking. It's this cliche we have, and we try to break it with the magazine. The appearance of the magazine is only a way to get the information across to them, and by making women who are using drugs look better, they might feel better, so it might be better for their self-esteem. And if you have more self-esteem, you will be less vulnerable.
This way, please.
Your dealer has ripped you and you decide never to go to him again. At home it's very cozy and your birthday won't pass without a party. It's just fun, you know, because it can't be all that serious. This article is called Mother and Child. This lady is a mother of 2 children, and she is still using drugs but also taking care of the children. And she's just telling her story, how she did that, where she got help.
I see a lot of courage in the drug users because they talk about all their very intimate problems.
That helped me to stop a little bit the drugs. Stop a little bit, not all, but a little bit. You understand? Yeah.
They read about their own lives in a way that it's helped them to be more aware of health, drug issues.
The tips, I like it.
I handed out the magazine to the women, and to my surprise and satisfaction, they immediately sat down on the pavement and start reading. And of course, this is a dream come true for a journalist and an outreach worker.
Well, after Mainline Lady, we got a lot of requests Well, when will the next issue be? You know, will this be a regular event? And then we decided not to come with another issue of Mainline Lady, but to invent something new.
Despite the abuse, a lot of drug-using women don't go to the police because they are afraid that the police will not take them serious. This girl did go to the police and they helped her. So again, it's a positive story about taking care of yourself and getting your rights.
It really does something to them to make them feel special for a change.
Our audience went from being hardcore filmmakers in the small niche of, in the know people to a much broader audience that crossed over into other disciplines and then into the general public.
Me? Just your friendly neighborhood speed demon. I'm out to NASCAR, the fast car, to the last car, till there ain't no cars left.
It began initially as a film festival and a magazine together, and the idea was to showcase media that wasn't being shown. And in the US, that included video, since at that point video was still disparaged and thought as less than film, or considered just art-oriented and not really film media, or kind of more mainstream.
What you know is what is to see, and that's more than meets the eyeball. Now who wants to buy a brand new TT fly call? All right, y'all, fuel the speed was breakneck.
So magnificent.
We have the magazine, the festival, the DVD, and the website, and the idea was to have all of these different sort of forms of communication with the magazine as this sort of central point.
It's hard to say anything creatively that's produced right now isn't digital. I mean, all music that you listen to has digital post-production involved in it, but at the same time, I would say film and music are the two key areas that we focus on.
The central idea is just sort of creativity, fostering creativity and pushing the boundaries of what's been done. I think filmmaking, especially in the US, tends to be very codified and boring and traditional, and especially in the feature film world, that's very true. So ideally, people would be taking the material and the ideas that are offered in the magazine and pushing them further, and taking the tools and the information on how to use cameras and software and just doing really radical things. A lot of curators read the magazine and then program the work or contact the filmmakers that we mention or the artists that we mention. We also have had, people like Logan maybe making connections with a filmmaker and sort of going back and forth that way and trading ideas. So we just got an email yesterday from people in Australia who said, we want you to know about our company and thanks for all the information. We've already been in touch with, these people. And so I think that happens. It sort of becomes a point that people can sort of use to make connections.
When Res started, there really wasn't anyone out there that sort of gave a community vibe to digital filmmakers, gave them a forum. Now, a lot of the stuff that we show is shot on film, 16mm, 8mm, 35mm, a lot of animation stuff, and the digital emphasis has probably shifted to post-production. the animation is done digitally, and also all the films are projected digitally.
On the way to Soundview, Bronx River, the home of God and the mighty, mighty Zulu Nation. Yeah, just follow me. We're gonna walk down Morrison Avenue right now. Yeah, you know, put a little cool in your step. Yeah, don't walk so tight. Yeah, relax a little. Yeah, just like me.
There's probably two core reader groups that we look for with Res Magazine. There's the hardcore filmmakers who look to it as sort of a journal of what's been done, and as well as a technical resource, both in terms of new gear that they can use, techniques, shortcuts, you know, DIY solutions for filmmaking. Then on the other side, there's just sort of the interested third party, the lifestyle reader.
Press the stand button, okay? It's right on my hand. Did you notice there's a little button on the back and you can turn it on and both and move by itself. There's a lot of buttons.
We have to figure out, you know, okay, what is this nebulous group out there? What do they want, and how do we get them?
Ketchup on your chips?
Runny nosed, but wonderful.
Tea is too hot in this weather.
What did you catch?
There, I'm ready to run.
Full speed ahead.
Long weeds and no fish.
Edward has put the kettle on.
What did you catch?
Tea is too hot in this weather.
Chip of the old block, isn't he?
Runny nosed, but wonderful.
Ketchup on your chips? Ketchup on your chips?
What's happened over the last 6 years, of course, is that the tools now for filmmaking are similar to the tools that are used for music making and for game design and for graphics and for motion graphics. So people from those different fields are crossing over. Everybody's sort of switching back and forth, and the influx of information and shifts in terms of formal design or in terms of music, the kinds of things that filmmakers bring to music, all of that stuff is sort of getting mixed up and people are trading ideas from different fields.
We are one of the larger agencies in the U.S. And more importantly, we are, best we can tell, the largest independent agency. It's a very different kind of environment because of all of the consolidation that's gone on in our industry over the past several years for us to be out there as a large independent. And I've taken steps to see to it that, not only are we not for sale, but we will not ever be for sale.
I told you she had a boyfriend. I always joke that Dallas is the big, shiny buckle on the Bible Belt. It has the most churches, the most plastic surgeons, and the most gentlemen's clubs of any city per capita.
Now, if you look up there on the roof, you'll see where the massive burger was anchored. No one was injured, although the owner of the car was shaken up. Now, I'm told there are no suspects at this time, though investigators do think foul play was involved.
There's a very different element here, too. There's a lot of great design that goes on here. There's some really good advertising that goes on here. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
For Live Witness News, I'm David Carpetian. Katie?
That started out as one billboard, cows saying, "Eat more chicken," you know, painted on the board. And that just became, it was so popular and it did so well that it became this huge campaign. And you wish you could plan things like that, but sometimes it's just the whole lightning in a bottle and you just have to recognize it and go with it.
If we're going to grow the business, if we're going to gain share, it has to come out of the hamburger business. And so we employ renegade cows who, in enlightened self-interest, advise people to eat more chicken?
Well, before the new women's styles came out, we were told
Our role on this project would be largely ceremonial.
the experts were going to handle this.
We went back in history and resurrected the fruit guys. And the fruit guys were an icon for Fruit of the Loom that they had walked away from, I guess, 10 or 12 years ago.
So the experts came in and pretty much took over. We're able to contribute in other ways. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, that's too much. Oh, I spilled it. We certainly don't have to be front and center on this. We're all team players.
There is no iron fruit.
Yeah, there is.
Oh.
It's a small one, though.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
We thought there was a tremendous amount of equity there. We just needed to take the fruit guys and bring them up to date.
Now it's, you got to be careful with mentioning Europe. Some of my other clients have some, you know, European influences or whatever, and you can't play that up too much because of what happened in Iraq and military. It's more, not so much 9/11, but the war in Iraq. I've noticed something where you might have had like a tank in the ad, or, you know, something just generic. Well, we can't do that. That's war imagery, and war imagery is no bueno right now.
I travel all over going to Scottish festivals and I always stay at Motel 6. I get to rest, save money, and I'm very comfortable.
That makes one of us. We'll leave the light on for you and a Accor hotel.
One of the creative directors that I interviewed with gave me maybe the best advice of my entire life. I showed him my work straight out of school, and he looked at it and he said, this is a great book. I can't hire you, don't have a spot for you, but if you could stick it out in Dallas, you could ultimately be the man here. And I thought that sounded pretty appealing, so I did stick it out, and it's turned out to be a great career in a city that really has no traditions for great advertising.
The idea of the taxi being a shared space, the passenger and the driver itself, and playing on associations that happen within that space. And Peace Taxi, what emerged from that, really brought together, I think, cross-cultural artists in an initiative to sort of work on that idea.
Democratic technology can make a small amount of people a lot of money.
SAVAC stands for the South Asian Visual Arts Collective, and the mandate of SAVAC is to promote both locally and internationally the work of emerging South Asian visual artists. After September 11th, a lot of taxi drivers in the New York area started displaying little flags in their taxi cabs, and it was a way of almost protecting themselves from a lot of the racism and a lot of the retaliation that was happening. And so for us, that really was like a red flag, almost like a warning sign suggesting that what's happening in this private public space within the taxi cab. You have people that are in it that are very, very vulnerable compared to the average population, just because they're put into a position where anything can happen once a fare gets in the taxi.
I'm communicating to people I don't even know, which is neat. And that's kind of interesting to have work outside of a gallery and in a totally different space, because you can engage in a totally different sort of dialogue with people that you would normally get to speak to if you're just showing work in a gallery.
Whereas a gallery has a designed space, and you know how your piece is going to look like and how viewer is coming to look. There are certain norms and values of going to a gallery. But in a taxi, there is different levels of audience, different people coming. Some do like and others don't.
I was just hoping that they'd just look at it and kind of, slip into their own world, and how in a taxi you're being driven to some place, you're in between spaces, and you have that captive audience, and they just, it's nice to have something that you can look at and drift away into wherever you want to be.
When I was creating this piece, I was thinking, wow, like what are people going to think when they open the door and they step in?
One of my customers opened the door and saw this flower, and the carpet on the floor. He said, "What? What is this? I'm not going to inside this car. It looks like I'm in a cemetery. Are you going to bury me or what?" I said, no. It's just for art, for peace taxi. So she refused to take my ride.
It ranged from indifference to sheer excitement about the work. And I think that is indicative of just the normal population, because these aren't people who go and see art on a daily basis.
One lady, I dropped her and said, "Oh, it's very nice." She wants to go upstairs and bring her mom to come and see it. And she paid me money for that.
Certain individuals and certain artists, the work really came together, like Kingsley's cabin, Jennifer's work. I mean, he loves it. He doesn't ever want to take it down.
A customer can come in your car, he will never talk to you until he gets where he's going. But right now, nobody, no matter what time, each customer jump in, he has to talk about the art. So it makes me more comfortable for my work.
It's really built a little bit of a kind of following within that taxi company, which I think is a start. It's not going to be the end of anything, but it's the beginning of something.
I'm very concerned about the possibility that what we're going to see is an environment where the ISPs, the media purveyors, the organizations that handle your email, in fact, practically everything that has to do with the internet is going to be concentrated in the hands of 3 or 4 media companies. I mean, there's been an enormous consolidation, and I don't have to be an alarmist to speculate on the adverse consequences of that. It's been really regrettable the extent to which the small has been driven out of the internet market, and this is not something that I predicted. In fact, I had thought that there was going to be a hugely democratizing effect, and that has not been the case. I mean, there seems to be something about the digital environment that breeds monopoly, unfortunately, and this is quite the opposite of what I expected. Of course, I don't think that we've seen the full range of effects by any means. I mean, we're still at the very early stages of what's going on in the process that began really in 1847, which is where I think you need to start looking at it. I mean, with the invention of telegraphy, suddenly you had the ability to be present even when physically absent, and that's what this is all about.